Hello, my name is Dan Whalen, and I'm going to be talking today about the bridge collapse, I-35 bridge collapse in Minneapolis, Minnesota. We'll be talking about kind of like the events leading up to the collapse of the bridge and kind of like the settlements and everything that happened after. So, built in 1964 by Hircon Inc., an industrial construction company, they had built a steel truss bridge. At the time, it was a cheaper material, a little easier to build than the type of um, general type of bridge they were used to building. But because it was a cheaper and they needed the bridge built pretty quickly, they decided to go with the steel truss bridge. And steel truss bridge is only supposed to last, they say, about 50 years, whereas the general type of bridge they built during the time was supposed to last about 75 to 100 years. Um, this bridge takes on 140,000 vehicles daily on average, and every 2 years up until 1993, the bridge was inspected, and then after 1993, it was inspected yearly. Um, in the year 2006, it was given a bad inspection rating due to corrosion on the bridge. A lot of the paint was wearing away, a lot of wear and tear on the bridge. Um, and they also noticed a lot of poor welding jobs done on the bridge, and with the steel truss beams and the floor beams connecting to the bridge, kind of like the supporting beams and everything, what keeps the bridge up and what keeps it stable. They also noticed that the bearings on the bridge were not moving as they should, moving with the bridge as they should and where they should. It had a lot of fatigue and wear and tear on the bridge again, and there's a lot of cracks from just over the years just corroding away. Um, a lot of these deficiencies were noted back in 1997 and were put into the reports up until 2006. And there was some repair work on a lot of the cracks and stuff, just the general typical kind of here and there kind of repairs, but nothing major done. It was noted as structurally deficient, but being structurally deficient, you can still use the bridge, but they lower the weight capacity standards that can be allowed onto the bridge. And at the time, it was um, 80,000 pounds allowed on the bridge at a time, and then like a work overload of upwards to 120,000 pounds. And finally, the bridge collapsed in August 2007. What happened was the victims, there was 111 vehicles on the bridge at the time of the collapse, and only 17 of those vehicles were pulled out from the water. They found 13 people were dead and 145 people were injured. Um, Later reports showed that the collapse was due to design failures from of the gusset plates, the supporting plates, the poor welding jobs done on the bridge, and it had failed under substantial weight increases, which the standards, I'm sure, over the last 40, 50 years have changed since when the bridge was originally built and designed. Um, and it also collapsed due to, well, going back with the weight increases on the bridge. You also had the construction crew and all their vehicles added onto the bridge that were repairing the bridge. Kind of ironic, I don't know. Just the fact that they're trying to fix the bridge and it collapsed when they were fixing the bridge. A little weird, but they said a lot of the issues was failed calculations of the plates and what they could hold up to, what the substantial amount was, and kind of everyone's ignorance towards what they could hold, and a lot of the safety practices during the time over the years were kind of ignored, not really followed, and considered inadequate by the state and by the construction company. So looking at the settlements, obviously the state was sued, and um, they ended up setting up a $37 million fund for the 180 victims that were on the bridge. The state set up this fund thinking that they would later go back and be able to sue the construction company and a couple different places here and there. And because it was 40 years after the construction company actually built the bridge, under law, the construction company was no longer held liable. However, later on in the courts, the courts overruled that previous legislature. So they ended up going back and suing the construction company and were partially held liable. And kind of brings up the question of how do we determine liability in this case? How do we say 40, 50 years ago how they could still be liable for the technology advances and for what we know now as compared to back then? And at what point do we drop liability? Just a bunch of ongoing questions to consider, and this case kind of created fear, or it is now creating fear for future construction companies for their future projects. So that's kind of basically it.